Hello, and welcome to another episode of Open Door Policy. So if this is your first time, let me give you the pitch of what the show is about. This is a show with very little preparation because the show is about you. What you can do is jump on in either in the comments, comments on YouTube or comments on LinkedIn, and ask questions or share your experiences there. Or you can use this link and jump on live on the air, and talk with me. Now that might be sharing an experience, something you're puzzling over that that's been happening at work. It may be a very specific challenge you're facing that you'd like to get a different perspective on, or feel free to just jump on in for a chat. Happy to talk anything relating to work and technology. So I'm your host, Daniel Walters. So that's me. You can find me over at greatcto.me, where I write quite a bit. I've got over 150 posts targeted at technologists and tech leaders. And when I say tech leaders, I'm not just talking about engineering leaders. That can be leaders, with a product background, and design background, quality background, and also aspiring leaders, because I believe that leadership happens at all levels. We can all display leadership, no matter what our scope of responsibilities are. So my background, I've worked in tech for about 3 decades, most of that time leading tech teams, or sometimes it was quality teams, sometimes it was content teams, sometimes it was product teams, sometimes it was all the above. And I've worked for companies of various sizes. So I've worked with startups a lot. I've worked with sort of mid-sized businesses that had a sort of a global footprint, and I've worked at large organizations too. So, and then more recently, I've been working as a CTO coach and also a technology strategy consultant. And part of my personal mission is to provide the help that wasn't always available as I came up throughout my career. I noticed a big gap between what was available that was tailored for technologists versus other roles. And so part of my personal mission is to close that gap. So yeah, now if you're interested to jump on, as I shared before, you can grab this link. Let me post it into the comment section. I'm not sure if this will appear on both YouTube and LinkedIn. Let me know. I think it's gone to YouTube successfully. Unfortunately, if it hasn't gone through to LinkedIn, then you may just have to type it out, but it's not too bad. Now, if you don't want to show your face, you don't have to have your camera on. Happy to have a audio only chat as well. So that's no problem. Or if you don't want to share audio or video, just put your comments, in the comment section, and I'll respond to those as well. Now, I have a few different activities in mind today. I mean, what I'm trying to create is the most comfortable environment possible for people to come in and join. I'm very aware that sharing in a public forum is a reasonable amount of friction for many, and that's fair enough. And so part of my purpose of this show is to create more awareness about and normalizing people going and asking for help and getting support, getting feedback, and asking great questions Yeah, I want to destigmatize, the seeking of help, because in in an arena like technology, where imposter syndrome is thriving and healthy. It's a natural side effect of how our minds work, and all of the uncertainty we feel can lead us feeling like maybe we're an imposter, and that everyone else has it all together, and maybe for personal failings we don't. When the reality is, we're pretty much all in the same boat. And even as a experienced person with decades and decades behind my belt, it's that specter of imposter syndrome can be always there on the fringes. And so in destigmatizing the you know the asking others for help and getting support, the more that people may share their experiences, share their fallibilities, share where they're feeling uncertain, and you will start to see that more people than you realize are experiencing things similar to you. Um, Often when people come to me for coaching, one of the first questions I ask is, "Oh, this may seem really strange, but have you had any other coachees, share something similar?" And of course, in almost all situations, I've had numerous people I've worked with who have gone through very similar experiences, and the sense of relief that people can experience at that moment is quite visible and palpable. So yeah, as they say, a problem shared is a problem halved. And it's got to be more than that, right? Like you share a problem, and if you share it in a public forum, then we're slicing it up into many pieces, and devouring it. So yeah. Anyway, whilst we're giving people the opportunity to jump in, I thought we could do some activities. Now, the other week, I shared that occasionally, not often, not as often as I would like, but occasionally, I put on the game Tiny Glade to relax. I see there's a question in the comments. Hi, Rich Allen. How important do you feel? Let me actually put this up on the screen, and I'll go to solo mode. There's Rich. How important do you feel is the recognition of socio-technical systems in the modern era? I mean, the simple answer is yes. I think it is very, very important. I think it's an area that, for those of us who sort of have discovered this vein of thinking, we've connected with like-minded people, and share and talk about it quite a bit. And then I feel like there's a bit of a gap with bringing bringing the essence of that to the masses. And I think there is also natural barriers for people engaging in sort of the concepts around socio-technical systems, complexity science, and those sorts of things. And so a lot of what I cover on my blog is, which is available at greatcto.me, is trying to communicate these ideas in as lay person language as I can. So yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested in the motivation for the question, Rich. So, what's got you wondering about this about socio-technical systems. I mean, I feel like I know why they're important, but what is it you're seeing, at your organization or organizations that you're working with, which has you wondering whether the recognition is matching what it should be. Some of my broader hypotheses around why the present era, this is even more important, is I feel like there's a few driving forces that sort of are bringing things to a head, where organizations which could get by previously are now finding themselves in situations where not dealing with the inherent uncertainty of working with software and other technology is translating into friction in the form of poor feedback from customers in terms of the experiences they're having with the software, or high amounts of friction and complaints from within the organization about how IT or the development teams are serving the rest of the organization. So what some examples of those drivers we've seen over the last decade, really rapid progress in consumer technology, and for people working in enterprise, we're seeing some of that translate, but there is a natural gap. And so sometimes I'm working with similar tooling in my home context, but that consumer, that software that's aimed at consumers has far outpaced what I'm have access to in the larger enterprise, and that disconnect, or that is causing friction and higher expectations for users in the enterprise. And so with some of the clients I'm working with, the IT teams and the teams responsible for software procurement and things like that are wondering why the level of frustration and even aggro coming from the user groups within the organization is at a fever pitch, and often what I'm finding is they've got pretty rigid processes and policies which are creating situations where they are really unable to understand the real problems that those users are experiencing or what they're trying to achieve, and B, the gap on actually matching the most relevant solutions to those users is leading to that friction. So yeah, that's one of the forces. I think the other aspect, when we're talking about software engineering, is so within the sphere of my peers, we're often talking about things like Conway's law and things like that. And for people unfamiliar with Conway's law, it's suggesting there's a strong relationship between how people are organized and the resulting architectures, and so that's sort of a function of the fact that software creation is the culmination of thousands of small decisions, and when we're trying to apply the same sorts of thinking about how we might deal with simpler decisions that might occur once or twice a month, then approaching the work the same way doesn't quite translate. And when many decisions are made with sort of friction or barriers in the wrong place, such as those that may occur based on how people are organized, then you may get a whole sequence of decisions that sort of take software and the quality of software down the wrong path. So we've got an additional clarification from Rich. I'll just bring it up on screen. And Rich, if you're in a place where you've got access to a microphone and camera, then you are welcome to jump online as well. But if you're not, happy to chat on here. So Rich says, I'm a keen team topologies fan and wonder why CTOs don't necessarily recognize the need to evolve the team structure evolutions required in order to meet user needs. Yeah, so I am also a big fan of team topologies. The book came along when I was a CTO for Seek Asia, and we were already amidst of making changes. And some of the ideas in team topologies were influenced by some ideas shared by Evan Botcher over at ThoughtWorks at the time, and some of his thoughts on platforms. And I'd worked with Evan many moons ago, and then he also came and shared some of that thinking in about 2015 or 2016 at Seek in Australia, and I happened to be there, and that some of that thinking really influenced some of the things that we did. And in terms of what that meant in practice, it was shifting from more functional arrangement of team members. So like when I joined Seek Asia, the software engineers were on one floor, and the product managers were on the next floor up. And I asked them why they weren't sitting together and collaborating more frequently. And they said, oh, we tried that and it didn't work. Suffice to say, we did try that again, and surprisingly, with a bit of more intentional support, it did work and work really well. And so, we shifted from that sort of functional organization through to a more, what I'd say is like value-oriented or purpose-oriented alignment. That was pretty much aligned to the customer journeys that the Seek candidates and hirers would experience. It was a bit more complicated than that, because there were some teams that provided some underlying platforms to the teams. Things like paved roads for how they would manage their deployments and things like that. But for the frontline teams, the teams interacting and providing software services directly for candidates and hirers, they were organized around particular meaningful steps in the process. Like teams around searching and discovery of jobs, and teams around applying for jobs and things like that. There's no perfect way to organize teams. There's always some trade-offs. So for instance, when you organize around the steps of the customer journey, you can be at risk of some inconsistency between steps, but there is ways to mitigate those risks as well. And when we looked at that versus other trade-offs, we were happy with the balance. So where team topologies comes in. So the book came along, and the ideas we were familiar with, but what the book does terrifically well is provides a language that you can use. And so that meant that we weren't investing a lot of energy in trying to recreate that language or a version of it on our own, but we had both the visual diagramming approach, as well as the terminology being used in the book, and it took away some effort that we'd been previously having to put in, which enabled us to invest that in other things. It was also easier to have members of the team read the book, and they would get the gist of some of the concepts, so we could scale the thinking more quickly. So yeah, and I'm fortunate to get some opportunities to work with one of the authors, so co-author Matthew Skelton, from time to time. So yeah, team topologies is very helpful. Now for us, it was over 200 people in the team, organized into roughly 20 or so teams, and yeah, we didn't sort of transform or migrate to that way of organizing the teams overnight. We did it gradually. So another book I can recommend is Dynamic Reteaming. And again, that book came along after we'd already been doing some dynamic reteaming, but again gave us more ideas about how to continue to improve that. But what I mean by dynamic reteaming is, when you're organizing a team by purpose or by value, you can spend time documenting that, and pretty much what we did was create a pitch around it. So someone that was extremely passionate about one of the key areas of value for our in this case candidates and hirers, would put together a pitch, and we would run a pitching day, and people could sort of self-select into those pitches of going, okay, well, we removed all barriers from people leaving their teams to join this new team that was being pitched. So we had spent quite a bit of time working with the managers, to ensure that to worry less about that natural inclination of, what's going to happen if I lose a team member because they're joining this additional team. The person pitching would pitch also the capabilities that they felt the team might need, and then there would be a few days where they could have some deeper discussions, and then the person who put up their hand, they could make that final decision about whether to join. And the benefit of that was, you could have the early adopters participate in that sort of transformation earlier, and people later down the adoption curve could watch and see that this was a safe thing, and actually could be quite advantageous for people getting involved. And over the course of about 18 months, we were able to shift to that organizational structure. So I've got another comment here from Rich. So Rich asks, what was the additional functional support that made the difference? How did you decouple line management from team incentives? Well, this is a huge topic, and I have written a little bit about this, or maybe a lot about this, on my Great CTO blog. We did a lot, so I'm going to forget things, but for a more comprehensive view, definitely check out the blogs. Maybe after the show, I'll drop some of the relevant blog posts in the comments. But we did things like, so for instance, I hired a number of people who were operating in a coaching capacity, and it was over this time where I really developed a huge respect in the value that coaches contribute. And those coaches were across a number of different disciplines. And the way they would work was more on a pull basis. So it was regularly sharing what support they could provide and creating opportunities where people could opt in to get some support. I think we were quite influenced by the book Helping. Yeah, so that was one area of support. We for the dev managers, previously, before I joined CKAsia, the dev managers were inextricably linked with the delivery goals of each team, and because they felt that burden of the any particular thing that was being delivered, theirs was the single wringable neck. They were often getting very involved, probably too involved, in decisions that we would like the team members themselves to be responsible for. So we, in collaboration with development managers, started to rewrite the expectations of what they were responsible for. And so what we were really looking for was for them to join, and contribute similar to how the coaches I mentioned earlier were contributing. Now, they were different from the coaches. They were still connected through line management to individuals in the teams, but the framing of that was more, you are the person to be in the corner for those individuals. And we quite deliberately, because of the dynamic reteaming, and even before use of dynamic reteaming, there would be individuals that were reporting to a dev manager who were across different teams. And so the dev managers, all had visibility into multiple of the teams, and in many cases, multiple dev managers had visibility into multiple teams. They weren't on the hook for the delivery. The team, felt ownership of what they were trying to achieve. The team was focused on understanding the customer needs. It was a cross-functional team, with designers and engineers and product talent and data people and all manner of skill sets. And then they had less of the potential for micromanagement from dev managers, because dev managers were now being their responsibilities were focused on supporting the team members, as opposed to feeling like their neck was on the line. And that, I'm not sure if that would translate to other organizations. We found that that worked for our context and our particular situation. But that's how we address that. Rich had another comment here. Yeah, so team topologies and dynamic reteaming are a good match, in my opinion. Mine too. Yeah, I think that is a really good match, and I think, but the two of them are still insufficient. So the elements that I think partner well, that help those two things work together, that you can do in addition. So what we did was communicate based on our knowledge, based on the knowledge we had at the time, a organizing structure that we thought we might arrive at within sort of 12 to 18 months. And so we mapped it out as like a block diagram, which essentially, mapped out the customer journey for candidates and hirers. And we'd used, some domain-driven design thinking and some customer journey thinking to identify roughly where we thought the borders of each team were. You could drill down for each team, and we had some thinking on what we thought the purpose of the team was. Of course, that would get redrafted and improved upon as we had people pitch for particular teams. And so we had this model that could be improved based on our continuous learning. And the reason why that was really important was if you just went with a purely adaptive approach to transforming an organization where you're just operating on what's in front of you, that I've seen organizations do that. I've been in organizations that have done that. That creates so much stress and is really, in my view, an inhumane approach to change, because there is no visibility on what's coming next. So this alternative approach where we were being adaptive, but we provided a view based on our best knowledge about where we're heading, and then used dynamic reteaming and and team topologies ideas to help map that out. It meant that people had some visibility on what was coming, and they also had great visibility on how the change was going, how it was working out for those that had elected to participate, and over time, they could sign up themselves as well. So I think that that's the third leg of that stool. So it's team topologies, dynamic reteaming, and then I think you need a model of how you think the new organization will work. That can include things like what you expect the common interactions between teams. You'll never get 100% right, but I think it is important to have a theory of how things will work. That's awesome questions, Rich. Oh, there we go. So did we use Wadley maps for strategic decisions? We did, but that was, so I was at Seek Asia as the CTO and CIO for 5 years. I probably started using Wadley maps in year 3, 4, and 5. So that came later. I know with team topologies, they use sort of like a cut down concept of Wadley maps with the user needs mapping. So some of the things that we did were sort of maybe accidentally towards that, but no, it was when I finally read the Wadley mapping book. So Simon Wardley's got his book on medium.com. When I finally started reading that, those things sort of crystallized in my mind more. And by that stage, I was far more into some of those, strategic build versus buy decisions. We did use it for updating our thinking about how we would organize data teams across Asia Pacific. So it did provide some way of analyzing that. But yeah, we were doing that later. But yeah, Wadley Maps has since been a tool that I've regularly used with clients. It's one that if you can use collaboratively, you can take clients on a journey. Something that I have seen is people using Wadley Maps and then they do the mapping on their own, and then try and throw it over the wall to the client, and that's rarely received well, and is not how Simon Wadley suggests you use them. But yeah, that was probably a bit of a long-winded answer on that, but yeah, Wadley maps. For I don't know if I've got one handy. I might just in the background try and dig up an example, because I did have it in some slides that I did for CTO Lifeline. Actually, whilst we do that, I'm going to run a plug for CTO Lifeline. So I've got a more established live stream show that I do with my co-host, co-anchor, Noah Cantor, and it's CTO Lifeline, a far more prepared live stream discussion. It's still dynamic, so if you add your questions and comments in, we will respond them, and that will help shape the direction of the show. But we have had an excellent line of guests, and will continue to. So the next guest for episode number 10 is leader and legend Fred George. So if anyone isn't familiar with Fred George, well known, working and consulting in leadership, but focused often on the culture of software teams, and is still coding to this day. He's worked in 70 plus coding languages. So he's not alone. There are others in the industry who are coding leaders. Most coding leaders don't do it particularly successfully. I know when I entered leadership and was pretty slow at giving up coding on a day-to-day basis, my leadership was very much hurt by that. But Fred George has some really interesting strategies for A, what he gets involved with, and B, how he can influence sort of transformational change and culture change as a coder. So yeah, that will be a super interesting conversation on December 4th at 12 p.m. New Zealand Daylight Time. Now, I was supposed to be multitasking and pulling up a Wadley map. Oh, that's the 5th discipline. I thought I had one. Yay. Okay. So we do have a picture of a Wadley map. These can feel a bit alienating if you have never experienced one before, but the concepts behind it are sort of stackable and remarkably simple. So it is a map. So the distance between items on the map are meaningful. So yeah, you may look at this and it's got an axis, so you might think it's more like a chart. So on the vertical axis, we have the value chain. And so you can see at the top, things start with the customer and then what the customer experiences. And then as you go down the image, you can see what is what each element is dependent on. Until you get way down to the fundamentals, such as, they're relying on cloud compute and the cloud, data centers that are dependent on power and things like that. So it's a great way to provide a snapshot of the current situation for a business, and how it's how the elements are interacting to deliver value. And then across the horizontal axis, you have essentially the evolution of those components that you've got visualized on the screen. So when you're thinking about some of the decisions you make that are tech strategy related decisions. If you've got teams which are hand building computers to deliver your very basic website, then something's going wrong, because you could be renting those services from a cloud provider, or you could be putting much more standard machines into a data center. So you could lay out those options, and it can help you make better choices about putting the effort for those things that are custom, that are core to your value, and those things that you can buy off the marketplace. You can do so and not be wasting that effort. So yeah, that's a little bit on Worthy Maps. All right. So I might just, there's anybody watching who wants to jump live on the air, then you can jump on that. So we've got, oh yeah, so we've got a good night from Rich. Rich is UK based, so it is very late. I've had a number of people from the UK with interest to jump on the show. Adam Horner, who I've had on as a guest on CTO Lifeline, was interested in joining, but yeah, it's super late. So Rich, thank you very much for your questions and contributions. Really appreciate it, and hope you get a great night's rest, and have a great day tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, so I do quite a bit of transformation work with teams, and I mean, I can describe it as transformation just so that you understand what the work may be, but I don't tend to, most of the time, like to describe it as transformation, because I find that word is associated with really big commitments to change all at once. And Rich was asking about socio-technical systems, and so when I think of organizations, I think of organizations as systems, and they're a function of all the interactions of the people, and the behavior of the people, and the processes and policies and other things happening within the organization, and also accumulation of all the incentives, soft and hard, within an organization. So if you're engaging with something that has that many interactions, it is by its nature complex, and therefore interference with or intervention with such a system is not going to guarantee predictable results. Thus, it is really well suited to an adaptive approach, that is to make changes, to make a change, and to observe the effects. And so we were talking about dynamic reteaming, and we were doing that a couple of teams at a time, or sometimes just one team at a time. And so we could make a change. We could do a really great job of supporting the team through that change, to making the full availability of multiple coaches, doing a multi-week boot camp with them, continue to engage with them closely, in the first sort of 5, 10, 15 weeks of them going through the change, whilst they were getting their legs under them. And so you could observe, sometimes we would establish a team and the wheels would fall off. And that was often because we hadn't done a good enough job to support them, or identified all the competencies and capabilities that the team would need to succeed. But we could be there to support as they started asking for help. So we could really see the effects of each change, and then use that to inform the evolving plan of how we continue to change the whole organization. And that was a way that's how it worked, as an incremental change over a longer period of time. Now, that said, it's still shorter than a lot of digital transformations that organizations go through, because when you try and do it with a large static plan, it becomes huge. You stress a lot about all the dependencies that you think that you have control of which you don't. And so such plans extend on for multiple years and typically fail. So, like the worst of both worlds. As I've covered before on CTO Lifeline, this concept of gap thinking versus present thinking has been a big influence on me, and I came across this from Dr. Jabe Bloom, and what it crystallized for me was, you can have a view of your future end state, but that shouldn't be a static laundry list of all the things that you feel like you need to do to achieve that end state. Rather, you can use where you're heading as more, an orientation of where you'd like to head to. But you're doing just as much work on assessing your current situation and thinking about what the next what the next adjacent improvement might look like, and then as you're making that change, you can see where that gets to you next. And so that means you will be evolving your view on what needs to change to keep stepping you towards that better future. And so the path evolves, but your aspirations may stay the same, or they may evolve too. So anyway, I was talking about change, and I've done a lot of work with teams, and I thought I would play a video which is always summed up for me this experience of, you might be coaching teams on adopting, sort of agile or lean practices, or more, sort of iterative or experiment-driven practices. And a lot of the team members are getting it, and they're excited by it, and they're getting some of the ideas and they're putting it into practice. But something is not working. And for me, sometimes there's other things that are going on, but for me, a remarkable number of times, it's often been that eventual discovery of what I call the spreadsheet. And so, you have teams that are moving towards more sort of a pull-based approach for picking up work when they're ready for it, rather than a push-based approach of someone allocating it to them and things like that. They've got they've got a Kanban board that helps them see what's available and to self-select what they might want to participate in. That this has the potential to give back more agency to each of the individual team members. But for some reason, something else is happening behind the scenes, and it's often happening with the spreadsheet. So let's watch the video, and then I'll describe how I see them as being connected.
I want to go on record one more time. Okay, the transmitted specs never said anything about any chair.
We are not putting anybody aboard this machine unless there is some sort of minimal protection. Minimal protection. End of story.
The chair is the spreadsheet. This is from the film Contact. So they had received the plans They had received the plans from some sort of alien civilization. They had built the plans, but they looked at the plans and went, "Oh, the plans must be wrong. There's no chair for the pilot to sit." So they made one modification to the plans, and that was to add the chair. Of course, the chair is causing all of that friction, and that's as soon as it shakes itself off its moors, then all of a sudden there's it's smooth. There's flow. The stress is taken away, and so for me, a number of the times it's been you're working with a team that a lot of the team members get it, but someone has that task allocation spreadsheet that is behind the scenes, and it's only through having curiosity and asking questions where someone eventually goes, "Oh yeah, no, I do work out who's going to pick up what, and I put it in this spreadsheet here." And the team look at that, and so then they know which stories to take off the board. And it's and there's all sorts of interesting downstream effects of that agency being taken away, with good intention, but with sort of bad side effects. That agency being taken away from the team. So every time I see that scene from Contact, it reminds me of all those times that I worked with teams and eventually found the spreadsheet, or maybe it's a different, maybe it's not a spreadsheet. Sometimes it might be a mirror board, or somewhere else where a well-meaning individual has looked at the plans and went, "Oh, this can't be right." How could people pick up that work themselves if no one's telling them what to pick up? And then they go and make those decisions on the team's behalf, and you fall back to square one. Anyway, so if you've got any video clips of from films or TV shows or other contexts that you think sum up quite succinctly some bizarre experience that you've had at work, then feel free to send them to me, and we can pull them up on the screen today or on a future show. So this might be a good time to remind people that Open Door Policy is on every Thursday at 1 p.m. New Zealand Daylight Time. Now that time was available to me, so that's why it's a recurring time. When I used to run office hours sessions as a CTO, it would be helpful to make them available at a consistent day and time of the week, and over time it would make that time be there almost as a service, as in people could rely on it in the same way that they could rely on catching a bus, based on the bus timetable. And so in the early weeks when I started doing it, those office hours were a little bit quiet. Maybe people didn't immediately believe it was a genuine offer. Maybe they were a bit nervous. There was maybe a whole variety of reasons. Maybe they just wanted to use it but then missed it, busy working on other things. But by making it consistent, then people could start to rely on it being there, and then when they had a need, they would come in. And so that's the idea of this show. So I'm for the moment and for the foreseeable future, keeping it consistent. Maybe I might offer another time slot in UK hours, or maybe a colleague of mine might do similar. Maybe we can get multiple of these Open Door Policy shows available. So I've had a few people who've reached out and shown some interest, but they're also keenly watching to see how this one goes. And wouldn't that be great if everyone working in tech knew that there was this regularly available resource with people both, such as myself in the host chair, but also guests and people in the audience who have expertise and relevant experiences that they could share. And you could get help for free. We would all help demystify the seeking of help. We would help normalize that, and technologists would spend less time feeling frustrated and alone, feeling imposter syndrome, and instead finding a pathway to remove the obstacles they're facing, to help change their organizations for the better, and overall have more success, and do that more quickly than I was able to in my career, because they had access to more support and more feedback and more advice earlier in their career. So I think that would be really cool. So I have the next CTO Lifeline episode 10 being advertised at the bottom of the screen for anyone who's listening audio only. We've got Fred George, who is I describe him as a coding leader. So it'll be a really interesting chat to find out his views on how to influence change. I really love his perspective, which builds up more empathy for the experience of engineers and everyone working in software product development teams. So I think that's cool. You can check out more of my writing on greatcto.me. I'm also writing over on the Hyper blog, which is one of the consultancies I work with. So I've written a couple of posts over there and some more coming down the pipe. You can also check out and subscribe to the CTO Lifeline YouTube page. I'll post these links other places as well. And you can follow me on my personal YouTube channel, which is currently where Open Door Policy is hosted. So if you want to be notified ahead of Open Door Policy live streams going live, then you can subscribe there, and you'll always get that in your notifications. So let me switch to my tiny glade view. So we've got a couple of minutes left in the show. The show is Open Door Policy. I'm your host, Daniel Walters. And the very special guest in every episode is you. So you can join in via the chat or jump on the air and chat with us. I'm an experienced CTO coach and consultant. I've worked as a CTO, CIO, and CPTO in the past in small, medium, and large companies. I consult and coach CTOs in small, medium, and large companies right now across a whole variety of sectors. I'm working with sovereign wealth funds and defense contractors and a bunch of SaaS services and government-linked organizations. So I've got a wealth of experience in helping leaders overcome challenges. I've also done a lot of work with teams in my role as a leader and also in some of my coaching and consulting. I've worked across roles. So I've worked as product manager for 4 of the years in my career. I've worked leading a content team for a portal for a couple of years. where I had 20 journalists reporting to me. I've led QA teams, in SaaS environments, but also in the computer games industry. So I've worked for many years as a software engineer and as a technology leader. I've worked quite extensively with data and analytics. I organised the Big Data Malaysia group in Malaysia, which had 8,000 members. We used to do events with 200 or 300 people coming every month. So yeah. Anyway, this has been another Open Door Policy Show. The hour absolutely whizzed by. Thanks, Rich Allen, for your questions. That was a really great discussion. Hopefully you found that useful. And we'll see you next Thursday, 1 p.m. New Zealand Daylight Time. Thanks, everyone.